He is the husband of the vice president, second gentleman, Doug Imhoff. And he has a theory about why former President Donald Trump has had major appeal with young men this election.
I talk to young men about who might be taken by the, fun side of Donald Trump, such as it is, the dancing, the going to the wrestling matches, going on the podcasts, and trying to portray himself as someone who he really is. And I think Cardi B called this out and said it's just all a hustle. And so what I'm trying to implore young men in particular to do the research. He's not your friend. The policies that he's talking about will not help them in the economy. The policies that he's talking about have nothing to do with them. So they might think he's great, think he's cool, but I was at an event somewhere and I was talking to a mom of a 18-year-old who was nervous and worried that he and his friends were all kind of taken in by this part of Trump. And she just said, please, just go online, watch him, watch the speeches, listen to what he's saying, not the podcasts, not him at the wrestling matches or the UFC, the football game. Just listen to his speeches, watch him, and then look at her and watch her. And he came back and said, oh my goodness, Mom, I'm voting for Harris.
Brett Baer? First of all, that was a long soundbite.
Does somebody else want to weigh in? I'm not sure.
No, I came to you first for a reason.
I think, listen, you do 3 hours with Joe Rogan. There's a lot of young men that listen to that podcast.
Sure.
And arguably, he got through all of that, some tough questions, and had some interesting back and forth. She was offered to do that. She didn't do it. I think that's a little bit misguided because some of these young men have a memory of what their life was under the Trump administration. So, when they think about how they felt economically, they look back to that. So I'm not sure I totally buy the second gentleman's.
Cardi B has talked a lot about her Lambo, so I don't know if she, on the economy, might be somebody that you would get your talking points from, but she's also very popular. What do you think about the celebrity?
I don't quote Cardi B a lot, so I don't know. It doesn't make it on special report. I'm not sure.
The best manicure on the planet she has. Emily.
Yeah, look, to me, this is totally illustrative of the disassociation that Doug and this administration has with the rest of the American people. It's just like how they painted the caricature of evangelical or Christian women, painting us into a box that we have to do what our husband says and we can't think for ourselves. He thinks, number one, that young men in this country are that impressionable as to be swayed by a mirage. Number two, he thinks that Donald Trump is a mirage. The whole point is Donald Trump was actually authentically being himself when he's on the podcast and in the garbage truck and doing all the things. He's actually never for one moment not been authentically himself. And that is why people are drawn to him. That same broad, inaccurate brush is what they painted Joe Rogan with when they called him the bro guy, and they said we refuse to go on him. So again, what you're hearing is the disdain from this administration, from the candidate's husband, for half of America, and making sure that you fit into a box that they will never understand because they are totally disassociated from real Americans that actually think for themselves.
Well, and the irony is he quotes a woman who is very much in her power. Like Cardi B is no wallflower, so I don't know. I'm not really sure the point he was making there.
Yeah, exactly.
She's big and bold.
Totally.
Well, do you remember this Washington Post headline from back in August? The headline reads, Doug Imhoff, modern-day sex symbol. And it goes on to say, quote, Imhoff is secure enough with his own masculinity to sometimes prioritize his wife's ambitions over his own. What, period, a period, honk, period. Kaylee.
Well, he may be a modern-day sex symbol to some, but to others, he is someone who's totally off base with his political analysis. I mean, the point about Donald Trump not having policies for men economically, that's a testable proposition. Go back and read the Wall Street Journal piece that popped right before the 2020 election called The Higher Wages of Growth. Pre-COVID, Donald Trump and his economy saw double median household income gains over the 8 years of Obama-Biden. In fact, in 2023, or excuse me, it would have been 2019, that income gain was $4,379. Imagine that just being added to your paycheck. So that's just categorically false. And then second, his whole point about Donald Trump, being likable, I thought wanting to have a beer with voters and voters therefore having to have a beer with you was a good thing in politics. Being likable is a good thing, but he seems to discount that as something that's just superfluous.
So he's not friends with Elizabeth Warren.
Probably not.
Shannon.
You know what? It struck me when he was talking about this. It's almost like that argument over who's the fun parent. Like, oh, you go with your dad for this weekend and he's going to take you to Disney World and give you candy. Kind of like he's saying that Trump is sort of the fun parent. But they're the ones who are having all the concerts and the celebrities and the parties and the dancing and all that kind of stuff. So it feels like they're kind of working on the fun vibe, too. And to Cardi B, the point about her, remember last year how mad she was at this administration?
Yes.
Because she said, I can afford this stuff, but what about my family and friends? And we're fighting these wars overseas and we're spending all this money. And she said she would never, I have to bleep it, but she said she would never bleeping endorse a president again. And so she's got really strong opinions. She is a really strong woman, but there she was on the stage. So something about this administration she's made peace with, apparently.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.